By 1944, German tank crews had learned one reliable rule: if you saw a Sherman, you didn't panic. The standard Allied 75mm gun could barely scratch a Panther or Tiger unless you were suicidally close. Then, almost overnight, something changed. Reports came in of ordinary-looking Shermans destroying German heavy tanks from a kilometer away. At first, many German officers assumed it was a trick or a misidentified weapon. But it wasn't. It was the Sherman Firefly, a British modified version carrying their own 17-pounder gun, a weapon capable of punching straight through the armor the Reich had once considered invincible. It looked like a normal Sherman, but its reach and power flipped the battlefield equation. And for the rest of the war, German tankers were told a simple order: shoot the long-barrel Shermans first. When the Firefly idea first took shape, Britain's armored forces were in trouble. Their Crusader, Valentine, and Churchill tanks had proved too slow, undergunned, or mechanically unreliable against German panzers in North Africa. The British 6-pounder gun had excellent armor-piercing power on paper, but couldn't fire high-explosive shells effectively, making it useless against field guns and infantry. The Americans' new M4 Sherman arriving under Lend-Lease had the opposite problem: good reliability and high explosive performance, but its short 75mm gun struggled against heavy German armor. By 1943, the Panther and Tiger the Funge were appearing on the eastern and western fronts, their frontal plates practically immune to anything the Allies had in service. At home, British engineers had built a gun that could do the job: the 17-pounder, a 76.2mm anti-tank gun that could penetrate a Tiger's frontal armor at range. The problem was, the 17-pounder didn't fit into any tank the British were building. It was too long, too heavy, and its recoil too violent for existing turrets. The War Office concluded that mounting it in a tank was impractical. For most officers, that was the end of the discussion, but not for Major George Brighty of the Royal Armoured Corps and Lieutenant Colonel George Witheridge, a veteran tank commander wounded in North Africa. Both men had seen what German armor could do, and neither accepted impossible as an answer. Working unofficially at the Lulworth Gunnery School in Dorset, Brighty began experimenting with ways to cram the 17-pounder into a Sherman turret. To reduce recoil, he cut away part of the gun's breech and reversed its recoil cylinders. To make space for the crew, he moved the radio out of the turret entirely and into a newly built box welded to the back, a modification that would become the Firefly's most recognizable feature. His early prototype looked crude, but it fired, and it worked. Witheridge used his connections to show it to higher command, bypassing the same bureaucrats who'd dismissed the idea months earlier. By early 1944, the design was accepted for mass conversion, with priority status for the upcoming invasion of Normandy. What had started as an after-hours project by two frustrated officers was about to redefine Allied tank warfare. Turning Brighty's prototype into a battlefield weapon meant re-engineering a tank that wasn't designed for it. The 17-pounder gun was nearly twice as long as the Sherman's original 75mm, and its recoil was brutal. British engineers under the Royal Armament Research and Development Establishment cut away the back of the turret, rotated the breech 90 degrees sideways, and shortened the recoil system. To house the displaced radio, they welded a rectangular box on the turret rear, the Firefly's trademark shape. They also fitted a new 3-chamber muzzle brake to reduce blast and modified ammunition racks to store the enormous shells. The loader's workspace shrank so much that crews removed side seats just to make room to swing around. It was crude, but it worked, a perfect marriage of British firepower and American logistics. Once approved, conversion went into overdrive. By early 1944, British factories such as Vickers, Royal Ordnance Woolwich, and Birmingham Railway Carriage and Wagon were stripping brand-new US-built Shermans and refitting them with the 17-pounder. The main models became the IC, based on the Sherman 1, and VC, based on the long-hull Sherman 5. between 2,100 and 2,200 Fireflies rolled out before Germany's surrender in 1945. Each British armored troop of 4 Shermans received 1 Firefly as its designated tank killer. The goal wasn't to replace all Shermans, only to make sure every unit had at least one that could take on a Tiger head-on. Crews quickly learned to disguise them, painting the front half of the barrel a lighter color, so from a distance it looked shorter, or covering it with canvas to trick German spotters. When Allied forces landed in Normandy on the 6th of June, 1944, Fireflies went ashore with British, Canadian, and Polish armored units under Montgomery's 21st Army Group. In the maze of hedgerows and villages, the Firefly finally proved its purpose. At ranges where ordinary Shermans had to flank or retreat, Fireflies destroyed Panthers and Tigers outright. German crews were caught off guard. They had been told the Allies had no gun that could penetrate their frontal armor. Some thought they were facing new American prototypes. The myth spread fast: long-barrel Shermans that shouldn't exist. From that point, German orders were clear. Fireflies first. They became both the most feared and the most hunted Allied tanks in Normandy. By August 1944, the Firefly was no longer an experiment. It was the backbone of British anti-tank power in Normandy. Crews across the front were proving what the conversion had promised. Finally, they could destroy German armor from beyond its own effective range. One battle in particular made that crystal clear. On 8 August 1944, during Operation Totalize south of Caen, a Firefly from the 1st Northamptonshire Yeomanry took up a hull-down ambush position near Saint-Aignan-de-Cramonil. Its gunner, Trooper Joe Ekins, was a new crewman with no prior combat experience. When 3 Tiger I tanks appeared in the open, Ekins fired 5 rounds and knocked out all 3 within minutes. One of them may have been commanded by Michael Wittmann, the most famous German tank ace of the war. Historians still argue which unit delivered the fatal shot, but the result was undeniable. A British converted Sherman had just destroyed Germany's best in open combat. The story raced through Allied units. What had started as a field conversion was now a proven tank killer. And to German crews, it confirmed the new fear. Some Shermans could kill you before you even saw them. Word of the Firefly's effectiveness spread fast through German armored units. Their intelligence officers issued field memoranda describing a Sherman with an unusually long gun. Crews were instructed, prioritize destruction of these tanks. The Allies responded with deception. Firefly crews often painted the front 2 feet of the barrel white or light olive so it looked shorter from a distance. Others wrapped the barrel in canvas and rope to break its outline. Some even positioned their Firefly behind standard Shermans in formation, hiding the long gun until firing. Tactically, every troop of 4 Shermans now relied on its Firefly. The Firefly stayed slightly back, acting as overwatch while the regular Shermans advanced. If a Panther appeared, the Firefly handled it. If infantry or guns threatened, the standard tanks did the job. German tankers hated it. To them, a Sherman that could penetrate a Tiger's front armor seemed impossible, a mechanical myth until they saw the wrecks. That disbelief gave your title its truth. This was the tank the Nazis refused to believe existed, until it was already too late. The Firefly wasn't perfect. The 17-pounder's enormous breech left almost no room for the loader to move. Crews had to tilt the long shell diagonally to chamber it, slowing the rate of fire. Its turret rotation was slower than a standard Sherman's, and ammunition storage was limited, only about 77 rounds compared to 97 in a regular tank. The Firefly also couldn't solve the Sherman's old weaknesses, its tall profile and thin side armor. German Panzer IV Specials, 75mm Panther main gun, and 88mm guns could still destroy it easily if they fired first. Yet the Firefly filled the gap no other Allied tank could. It gave British and Commonwealth units a weapon that could fight Germany's best on equal terms. The design proved that upgrading existing equipment could sometimes win battles faster than waiting for new models to be built. Crews respected it not because it was comfortable, but because it worked. In combat diaries from Normandy to Holland, British and Canadian tankers called their Fireflies lifesavers, ugly, cramped, and irreplaceable. When the war ended, production stopped, but the Firefly's influence didn't. Its 17-pounder gun evolved into the 77mm H-5 used on the Comet, and later the Centurion, tanks that would serve for decades. Many Fireflies stayed in service across Europe and the Middle East. The Dutch, Belgians, and Israelis kept them into the 1950s, using them as training or frontline armor until replaced by post-war Centurions and AMX-13s. For engineers, the lesson was lasting. The fastest way to win an arms race isn't always to start over. Sometimes it's to modify what you already have. A British gun welded into an American tank ended up being one of the most effective Allied tank killers of the war. The Firefly was never meant to be legendary. It was built in a hurry, almost in defiance of its own bureaucracy. But it worked. And for every German crew that saw a long-barrel Sherman through their gun sight, it was already too late.